Alright, hello YouTube, this is Anthony and I am here with my first video about 3D printing. So here are some little food clips and I will go over the process of making these, downloading the file, slicing it, and everything you need to know about starting your print. So it is going to be different for me as it will be different for you depending on what printer you have. So I have a PrinterBot Simple and it is a pretty good printer, but it is also a cheap one. I got it for about $300. You can buy them for about $300. The new ones, they have different versions of them, but the newest ones are $350. So it's not a really expensive printer, and the product of the printing isn't always the best, but it works really well for me and what I want to use it for. So I'm going to go over the interface, which is Repetier-Host, as well as the slicer. It's called slicer. So all that does is slice the 3D model into a whole bunch of layers depending on what you set, and I'll go over that in the software. And I will also show the time lapse of the print. So go ahead and stay tuned for that, and I'll be right back.
Alright, so now we're in Repetier-Host, and this is the interface of the program that you use to operate your printer. So right here I'm in object placement, so I can go ahead and add a object by clicking this plus sign, and it'll go ahead and bring up the file explorer where you could go to downloads, anything like that, and bring in an STL file. And you could also do load. So you could do load, and you could also see recent things that you've uploaded. So let's go ahead and get a file. So like I said, today I am going to be printing these clip pegs, which were made by Thomas Forsyth. So this website is called MakerBot Thingiverse, and you could just go on to Thingiverse. If you have a printer, you could go ahead and download files and print them at no cost. A lot of these are just things that people have made and want to share it with everybody. So you could go ahead and download these things, and it'll bring you to a pop-up. There's also thing information and other people who have made it and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and Thing Files. So just click on it, and it will start downloading. So there you go, it's downloaded. So go back to Repetier and add file. So I'm going to go to Downloads and Food Clip right there. So there it is, and you can use all of these to move objects, change your view. So move around the platform. I like the ISO view. You could, the little magnifying glass, like is to zoom in. So I could get a little better view there. And this little, this is a move object with a little car. You could just move the object wherever you want. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and print 2 of these. So back over here to our interface, there's these 2 pages where it's copy an object. So I want to make numbers of copies 1. So this includes a file that you already have. So the file that you already have plus 1. So if I do 2, there will be 3 objects on the platform now. But I just want to do 1. And you could auto position. I just like to keep that. So copy. There we go. So I have 2. And let me zoom out a little bit more, and I want to move these. So I'm going to select that one, shift, select that, control, select, can I? Oh, I guess I can't select both of them at one time. So move these down here. I like to have it close to the end. So now we'll go to this object, move it. So there we go. So that's just an easy way to bring in a file. You could also auto position. You could center the object. So if I want to center that object, you could also split objects and mirror them, cut objects, rotate, scale. So if I wanted this to be a little bit bigger, I could just add a 10 there, and wow, now it's really big. So let me do 0.5. So there we go. That's a little bit bigger, and it scales it evenly. So if it's you're scaling the y-axis, you're going to scale the y and z. It has to be symmetric. So there we go with that. And now here's Slicer. So in the new Repetier interface, you could do the Cura engine as well. I like to do slicer just because I've been using that for a while and I have all my settings in there. So if you want to change up your settings, so I have my own settings in here that I have created. So I'm going to be using PLA for this print, and you could go into the configuration settings and you could distinguish layer height. So I'm doing 0.2 millimeter layer height. That's a really good resolution just for any type of object. It doesn't create too many layers to where it takes forever to print. And you could also do perimeters. So this is how many lines it does on the outer side of the object. So if you want a really thick wall, you could do 3, 4, 5, however many you want. And that'll just make it the outer layer a little bit stronger. And you could go ahead and infill. So right now I have 20% infill, so the density is 20%. And you could change what type of infill, like honeycomb, it'll do like a little honeycomb pattern in the middle. Or rectilinear is just cross lines, so just a whole bunch of cross lines. It's just cubes in the center. And here we go to speed. So you could change how fast you want it to print. So the perimeter, you could change everything individually. So the perimeter, like I said, is the outer of the object. So the outermost part of the object. So I have it to 50 millimeters per second. You could change the infill, so however fast the infill is. So like if you have a really big object, sometimes the infill can take a while because it has to go across to perimeter a lot. So you could make that a little bit faster. And with bigger objects, it's better to have faster speeds if you have a really big object because you're not turning a lot. So if you have a really big object that you don't have to turn a lot, it doesn't really jitter or anything like that. So you could have faster speeds, but I like to just have everything to 50 millimeters per second. I found that works really well with my printer. So skirt. So this is what you use to prep the filament that's coming out of the nozzle. So I have it set to 1 millimeter away from object. So what it means is that it is going to do 2 loops around the object 1 millimeter away. So that just preps the object, or preps the extruder to make sure that filament is coming out consistently. So it's really good to have a skirt. Brim is just a outer loop connected to the object, so it has more surface area to connect to the bed. So you could enable support, things like that. So that's just basic things in here. So filament, you could distinguish extruder temperature, bed temperature. So right now I have a heated bed and I have it set to 70 degrees Celsius, which works pretty good with PLA. And also you could change a little bit some other things like bed size, the center of your bed, things like that. That's something that you'll have to change depending on your printer. So here we go, back to our object. So now that I've gone through the configurations, let's go ahead and slice it. So here it is slicing. You just hit the slice with slicer. So if you had Cura engine enabled on it, it would say slice with Cura, things like that. So here we go. This is our 3D modeled object. So you can show complete code. So this is the complete code. This is just showing the material. So you could also show, if you enable this, you could show the move. So this is where the printer head is going to move. All of the light green lines are how it's going to move. So that might be important to knowing if you want to mess with the G-code or something like that. So you could make it more efficient on when it's traveling from object to object, things like that. If you want to know that, I don't really care, so I don't enable it. You could also, I like to do single layer, or no, actually layer range. So what I can do is the last layer, if you move that back and forth between the layers, you could see the range. So if I want to see how it's going to print each layer by layer and how it's stacking up, I can go ahead and do that. And I could see, you could see, so in the settings I have it set to the first 2 layers being solid and the last 2 layers being solid. So right now, this last layer, the infill is solid, and the one under it is solid. And after that, it's just the infill. So that rectilinear, you could see, let me zoom in a little bit. You can see that it's just lines going across each other. And that'll change whether you have honeycomb or anything like that. And you could also see that the perimeter, so this is what I was talking about, for the perimeter, there's 2 lines at the outer perimeter. So if you wanted the wall to be a little bit stronger, you could have 3. So it'll be 1, 2, 3 again, and then the infill on each side. So that's a little bit more of a demonstration about the settings. So that is your G code. So this is the G code. It's just a whole bunch of numbers of the positions where the stepper motors are going to be. So I don't really know what this is doing exactly. It's just coordinates, basically. I don't really want to know because it just works. All you need to do is bring in the file, slice it, and also set your settings. And there you go. So this is the interface right now. I don't have my printer plugged in because it is currently printing on a different computer. So you can home, this is home all the axes, home the x-axis, y, z, and later on I might do a video on the interface. You could change the bed temperature, extruder temperature, feed rate, so that's how fast it prints. So right now, it'll go by your settings if you have it to 100. So that's basically 100% of your settings. So if you go down to 50%, it'll be 50% of your settings, as well as 150%, it'll be 150% of your settings. So you can do fan speed and everything like that. And SD card, so this is if you have an SD card connected to your computer, you could download this G code. So you just save, and you could save it to a SD card. And my printer, the PrinterBot Simple, has a SD card on the board, SD card slot. So I can save this to an SD card, plug it in, and print from the SD card. And I could just remove my computer after I started the print, and it'll print on its own. So there you go. That's the interface for the most part. And big thanks for Thomas Forsyth for uploading this STL file to Thingiverse. I mainly get all my files off of Thingiverse, so it's great to see people putting up new and really useful STL models like this. Now I don't have to go to a store and buy a clip. I can just go ahead and print it out and use it with things. So that is really great, and I really like that people are willing to share their creations and their files. So that's a great thing. And that's all for this. So I'll come back with a little showing you the final project, as well as I'll put in the video a time lapse of the print.
So the prints are done and everything is complete. So here are my 2 clips. So I think the print came out pretty well. One of them had a little bit of warping. So if you can tell, just that little edge. That's not really focusing. Focus. Yeah, so just that little edge isn't perfectly flat. So that's due to warping. So if the first layer isn't attached to the bed well enough, when it continues printing and as plastic heats up and cools down, it shrinks. So these have very low shrinkage, but they still can come off the print and warp a little bit. So that is what it is due to. So it could be my settings in my printer. I don't have the height of the nozzle against the bed at a correct value, or it could be the print bed wasn't hot enough, you can use this printer. You can use this filament without a heated bed. That is fine. You could just use regular painter's tape. So you could use painter's tape to attach to the print bed. But I have Kapton tape, which requires a heated bed no matter what filament you're using. So that is why I might have not had the printer bed hot enough, or it could be my room was too cold, anything like that. A lot of things contribute to 3D printing. That is mainly due to my printer being a open printer, so it doesn't have its own enclosed area. It's open to your room temperature, everything like that. It's not just contained in its own unit. So those things can contribute to it. But these two clips took about 45 minutes. So it is not the fastest thing ever, but it still works very well. In 45 minutes, you have clips right there waiting for you. So that is extremely, it's really cool, and I really like it. So as far as the clipping, so um, they open up pretty well. It's a little bit hard to open up, but that's no problem. You won't have to open up that wide to clip little things or a chip bag or anything like that. You don't have to open it up very wide to clip any of those. So overall, they went pretty good. You could tell the edges, it's pretty clean. You can see the little ridges. That's just due to each layer, and they look pretty good. Not too bad. So these are the clips, and that's mainly all. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It might be a little bit long, but the process of 3D printing isn't a short process. It is relatively easy once you get all of your settings correct in your slicer and in your printer interface. Every print will go well, and it should be no problem. I always just download the file, slice it, and print it. It doesn't take me very long. You don't have to sit there and watch it. It just goes by itself. Um, so it is relatively easy once you get over the first few hurdles. But that should be all. And stay tuned for more 3D printing videos. I would really like to put out more 3D printing videos, as well as tutorials, things like that, gaming, unboxings, anything like that. So I should have a few videos, like 3 or 4 videos up on my channel. So stay tuned for more. Check out those videos. They might not be of the highest quality, but I'm working out all of the settings and how to create videos, and they will only get better in time. So I hope that this video is a lot better than my previous videos. So stay tuned for that. And sorry for making this so long, but I will see you in the next video, and make sure to subscribe or like.